Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Upgrades. I'm Jeremy Knoll.
And I'm John Suarez.
And today we are going to be talking about the First Flight deck, which is the first deck out of the 2022 Starter Commander decks. So these decks they're 5 brand new decks that are entirely reprints. And they're a little cheaper than the decks that you would normally get that go along with a new set, or the Commander set that comes out along, with a whole 5 decks, to be able to get people into the game. So if you're brand new to Commander, and this is your first Commander deck, welcome. We hope you have tons of fun. And we're gonna talk a little bit about some of the cards that are really cool in the deck, and some suggestions for cards you might wanna pick up to add in. Normally for this show, we try and keep those cards around $5 each, but might have a couple that snuck in throughout the episodes.
I might have missed that memo on some stuff.
Yeah. Okay. But to try and give you a little bit of a leg up at your game night and hanging out with friends. So this first one is First Flight, and it's a blue-white Flyers deck that is headed up by Asperia Supreme Judge. So Asperia Supreme Judge wants you to attack and wants other people to attack you.
Yep.
So that's kind of what the whole deck is. Spirit Supreme Judge is 2 white, blue, 6/4 flying Sphinx. Whenever a creature attacks you or planeswalker you control, you may draw a card. So there's definitely some very interesting cards that are in this precon. The first 2 that I'm going to go over are Sphinx of Enlightenment and Inspired Sphinx. So these ones are kind of neat because if you've been playing for a little while, you may not have seen these, because these are both originally from the Game Night packs, which the Game Night is a self-contained 5 smaller starter decks, kind of hang out with people.
And we've had 2 of those now.
Yeah, we've had 2 of them now, and so it's really interesting to see them. We don't have some of the better cards, I think, from the individual Game Nights and some of the other decks, but it's cool to see that they're reprinting some of them.
Getting a reprint in general is nice, because they're literally only in this box set. So
Sphinx of Enlightenment is only in the original starter, Game Night 2019. Mm-hmm. And then Inspired Sphinx was actually recently reprinted in the Kaldheim Commander decks as well. So if you're looking for big beefy flyers that are going to do some cool things, make sure to check those out.
Yeah, so the other, we have several other cards that we wanted to kind of touch base on. One of them does not fly, which is kind of weird, because this is a First Flight deck. And that is Angler Turtle. I don't know why they put this in there, other than the fact that if you're a new player and you see this, you're going to resonate with it. You're going to like it a lot. Giant hexproofing turtle. It's 7 mana for a 5/7, but it has hexproof and it makes your creatures attack. Your opponent's creatures, which is good, because then exactly,
opponent's creatures attack each combat if able. So if they're attacking you,
you draw some cards.
You get to draw some cards. But it also makes them aggressive, so that hopefully you'll be able to get through with your flyers as the game goes on. The next one is going to be Bident of Thassa. So this one's been reprinted a bunch, but it's still just a really solid card. There have been other effects like this in the past, usually on enchantments and things like that, sometimes on creatures, but it's whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card. Mm-hmm. But it also has the added ability of creatures your opponents control attack this turn if able. Yep. Again, trying to get them to attack you so you can attack back, and also trying to draw those extra cards by getting them to attack.
Yeah, this one's important because the other versions of it don't have that last line of text, that ability to make creatures attack if able.
Exactly.
Coastal Piracy does the same thing, but doesn't get that ability. So you can get a cheaper version of this, but it's, it comes with the deck. So.
Yeah.
Next up, we have another enchantment, not an artifact, and that's True Conviction. 3 colors, white. Creatures you control have double strike and lifelink.
Yes.
This card. So this deck in general, it's a blue-white Flyers deck, right?
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who may have played Limited and don't play Commander and just getting to it, blue-white Flyers is a generic type across most sets when you're learning Magic. And this is the type of card that you would expect to see in Limited as far as like a bomb for those decks. So it's pretty funny to see a Commander deck that's basically based off of a Limited strategy.
Based off Limited formats, If you're playing Sealed deck or if you're playing Draft, blue-white Flyers is usually a tried and true go-to, and so seeing something like that is really cool. Having the double strike and the lifelink is very, very good. Being able to make sure that you're gaining that extra life as you go through the game, as you're trying to get people to attack you. You want to make sure your life total is still buoyed up. So our next one is Archon of Redemption. So this one is really neat. It's a flyer, 3/4 for 3 white. And when it or another creature with flying enters the battlefield under your control, you gain life equal to that creature's power. Again, another way to try and gain you a little extra life. Most of your creatures have flying outside of random ones like Angler Turtle, so you're going to be gaining quite a bit as you go through the deck.
The design's interesting because they, Asperia wants to get attacked, and having some lifelink and some ways to gain life is pretty cool.
Yes.
I like that they did that. It's very, very clever. The next card we have up is a giant flying lifelinking angel in Sephira, Sky's Blade. This card is 7 mana, 4 white for a 7/7 flying lifelinker, and it gives other creatures you control with flying indestructible. And then it also has the caveat of you can also just pay 1 white and tap 4 creatures you control with flying to play this.
Yep. And it's just 4 untapped creatures you control. So if you happen to play 1 on your turn, it doesn't have, even if it has summoning sickness, you can still just tap it because it says tap 4 untapped creatures. So if it's, again, if you're a new player, that is something that might get caught up because you're not sure if that can happen or not. But yeah, I think Sephira is also one of the more expensive cards in the deck. Might be the most expensive card in the deck, as far as price-wise goes. Our next one is another one that you see as a bomb or has actually seen a bit of constructed play throughout the years, and that is Sphinxs Revelation. It's an instant for X, white, blue, and it says you gain X life and draw X cards. Again, trying to just draw a bunch of cards, trying to gain that extra life as a buffer while people are attacking you. Works out really well.
One of the other notable cards we have listed is an excellent combat trick, and that is Aetherize. This is a card, when you get to playing Commander, you will learn to play around.
Yes.
3 colors and a blue instant. Return all attacking creatures to their owner's hands. So this card is great for, getting attacked, drawing your cards off Asperia, bouncing it all back to their hand. Or if, you want to be political in the game and you want to help out a friend, you can go ahead and save or help somebody from all the other attacks. Because they don't have to attack. It doesn't return ones attacking you.
Yes.
Just any attacking creature goes back.
Yeah, it's very important to make sure to learn that a little bit as you go along, that, hey, you can save someone and maybe they'll help you out later or won't attack and kill you.
Another trick for newer players, you can also play this after the attacking creatures have dealt their damage.
Yes.
So if your opponent attacks another one of your opponents and you let them deal all the damage, you can still Aetherize afterwards and get them back out of play.
Yep. So there are a few mass destruction spells, a few wrath effects, as they're called, in some of the other decks, and this is definitely one of the ways to make sure that you're clearing the board of other players' creatures in this deck. Our final one is one that I think is really neat in this deck, and that is Windreader Sphinx. This was most recently in Jumpstart. It might have only been in Jumpstart, I believe. It's a 3/7 for 5 blue, flying, and whenever a creature with flying attacks, you may draw a card.
Yep.
And so that does not say whenever a creature with flying that you control attacks. So make sure you're noticing that. Yeah, any creature that's flying on any of your opponent's sides also allows you to draw a card. So if they happen to have a couple of small flyers, even if they're not attacking you, if they're attacking one of your opponents, you get to draw those cards.
Yep.
Really works out well. So now we're going to go through a couple of cards that we would suggest to add to the deck to make it just a little bit more powerful. As I said before, all of these cards are going to be under the $5 range.
For
this one. And the first one that we would suggest is Wizard class. There are a couple of ways to make sure that you have no maximum hand size, and there are going to be a couple of examples in our upgrade guide here. Wizard class is an enchantment for 1 blue mana, and to start off, it just says you have no maximum hand size. It works really well if you're going to be drawing a bunch of cards, as a lot of the cards in this deck want you to. You can also level it up, so you can pay an additional 2 and a blue, and when it levels up to level 2, you draw 2 cards, and then you can pay the extra to level it up to level 3. Whenever you draw a card, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Very easy way to be able to either buff up like your commander or one really big threat that has a lot of defense, so that you can make sure that when they're attacking you, you've got a really solid blocker in the way.
Yeah, having no maximum hand size is going to be pretty important because this deck does have several high-costed flying creatures. And then the turn you actually play out Asperia, you're not putting a card from your hand into play, so you just have more cards in hand.
Yep.
And then you're going to get attacked because you put Asperia into play.
Exactly.
So making sure you have no maximum hand size is going to be pretty useful overall, to making sure that you don't actually have to start discarding cards.
Exactly.
All right, so the next card we have, I've never pronounced this card, but I absolutely love this card from Hour of Devastation. It's Anesh, Cryosphinx Sovereign.
Yep.
All right, we got there. 4 colors, blue, flying, 4/4, and it has Sphinx spells you cast cost 2 less to cast. And then whenever it or another Sphinx enters the battlefield under your control, reveal the top 4 cards of your library to an opponent. An opponent separates those into 2 piles, put 1 pile into your hand and 1 into your graveyard. So
yes.
like for those who are too new to the game, that's called fact or fiction, basically, in this game, and how we describe these cards. And I absolutely love this card. I remember when Corey got to just go wild crazy with it in our Commander Versus video. So
so this one's definitely for if you're trying to build around the Sphinxes. There are only a few Sphinx creatures in the initial deck, but Sphinx creatures are generally a little bit cheaper cost-wise, like price-wise. So it's pretty easy to be able to go get quite a few of them and upgrade the deck with that in mind. So if you are looking at more of a Sphinx Treble, feel, this is definitely a good one. And then, don't be worried to try and put extra cards in your graveyard. That's definitely not a bad thing. Not a bad thing. So our next one to upgrade is going to be Archetype of Imagination. This one is one that we've seen in a couple of different precons, and it is 4 blue for a 3/2 enchantment creature, human wizard, and it says creatures you control have flying, and creatures your opponents control can't lose flying and can't have flying.
Or gain it.
Yeah.
They don't get flying, period.
Can't have
no matter whatever they do.
Yep.
No flying allowed.
No flying. So it's a really good way to make sure that your creatures are always going to be able to get over them. They're not going to, unless they have something else like a reach or something like
watch
that.
your secret reach.
Then you're going to be able to get through and deal the damage almost every turn. So.
All right, next card we have up is Sayani, Eye of the Storm. This is a 3 colors and a blue 2/2 legendary Djinn Monk. Has flying, and whenever it attacks, you scry X, where X is the number of attacking creatures with flying, and it does have partner for this. All intents and purposes, you don't have to worry about partner. That might as well not exist there, but just a cheap flyer that allows you to get some value when you're attacking, which I like.
And the way that it works in this is that if you're attacking and you have any sort of thing that says, like the Sphinx that says whenever a creature with flying attacks, draw a card, you can actually stack those triggers in a way that's beneficial to you. So you can actually do your scrying. You can look at the top X cards of your library, figure out which ones you actually want to keep, put the rest on the bottom, and then draw those cards from the top. So make sure to look out for interactions like that. The next one that we've got is one that has seen a lot of reprints in precons, and that is Unbreakable Formation. This one's really good to be able to make sure that anybody who's running any sort of destroy all creatures or even just a destroy individual creature and you want to keep that around, it's really helpful. So it's an instant for 2 and a white, and it says creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. Or it has addendum, if you cast it during your main phase, put a +1/+1 counter on those creatures and they gain vigilance until end of turn. So it also has the added utility of being able to just pump your whole team up and potentially just knock somebody or multiple people out in one turn.
Yep. Next card we have up is Vencers Journal. This is a 5 mana artifact that says you have no maximum hand size. Again, right on that. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you gain a life for every card in your hand, which if you have no maximum hand size, hopefully that means you have a bunch of cards in your hand so that this will gain you some more life back. I like this. I think that's real simplistic and easy. I like the like Reliquary Tower or Ivory Tower kind of mix into this. It's clean. It does what it does. It gives you what you want in no maximum hand size, and it gives you life, which you're going to need because you're getting attacked. So
And speaking of which, one of the other cards we would suggest is Reliquary Tower. It's just a land that says you have no maximum hand size and taps for 1 colorless. So one of the things that we talked about when going over these decks is that a lot of the land bases, actually all the land bases are pretty simplistic. They're a lot of very easy, just like comes into play tap and maybe like taps for one of the 2 colors in your deck. There are definitely ways to improve your land bases, but we're not going to go over the ones that are going to be just like putting in like expensive expensive lands that are going to get you your 2 your 2 colors.
You can do your research and look up land combinations for these colors. There's infinite possibilities on the lands that you want to add. There's a lot. The ones that come with this are obviously the very basic common ones. Just comes into play tap and gains you a life. That's for white or blue. Or it just comes into play tapped.
But we might have, through a couple of the episodes that we're doing here, show a couple of utility.
Reliquary Tower is a good example.
Reliquary Tower is a good example.
And the last card we have, which is pretty great, is Imprisoned in the Moon. 2 colors and a blue enchantment aura enchants a creature, land, or planeswalker, and the enchanted permanent is colorless and has tap, add a colorless mana, and loses all other card types and abilities. This card is actually, if I recall correctly, this was the first card that former Star City Games member Glenn Jones created.
Oh, yeah.
This was the first card he created when he went over to Wizards.
Yeah, that was...
a lot of fun. This card is excellent at removing basically anything from the board. As long as it's not an enchantment or artifact, get it out.
Yeah.
It's excellent to put on a commander. It feels real good to put on your opponent's commander.
So. Yeah, there's definitely a couple of interesting cards in here. Like we have some decent removal already with Swords to Plowshares, Generous Gift, Disenchant,
Condemn,
Crash Conjurer, and yeah, there's a bunch in here. Aetherize, as we've talked about, and Cleansing Nova. So, and Time Wipe. So there's a bunch of different ways of removal. This is a good way, as John said, to like definitely take care of like a pesky permanent, like a commander that's being really annoying, that it doesn't immediately go back to the command zone and they can recast it.
Yeah. Commanders are the hardest thing to deal with in Commander. Exactly. Surprising. But
so you want to make sure
having options like that are great.
You have some sort of option. So that's our suggestions for the first flight deck, the Blue-White Flyers deck from the 2022 Starter Commander decks. Let us know, A, what cards you would put into the deck in the comments below, and also which one of the decks you're looking forward to playing with the most out of these 5 brand new decks. Also, make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and hit that bell to get notified of all new content. For Jonathan Suarez, I'm Jeremy Knoll. Thank you so much, and we will see you next time.